Chris Columbus, the director of the 2001 Harry Potter movie, has just done an interview with the Times of London where he was asked for his thoughts on the upcoming HBO Harry Potter series and whether he would make a new film in the Harry Potter franchise, which he has not been asked to do. He is coming off as very unemployed in this interview, but here's what he had to say. It was quite shady. Columbus previously stated that he wanted to direct a film adaptation of the stage show Harry Potter and the Cursed Child using the original movie cast. But since then, J.K. Rowling, trans controversy, has made any potential adaptation impossible. It's never going to happen. It's gotten so complicated with all the political stuff. Everyone in the cast has their own opinion, which is different from her opinion, which makes it impossible. I haven't spoken to Miss Rowling in a decade or so I have no idea what's going on with her. But I keep very close contact with Daniel Radcliffe, and I just spoke to him a few days ago. I still have a great relationship with all the kids in the cast. He was also talking about the TV series, saying, I'm anxious to see what they do, but from what I've seen already, they're basically doing the same thing we did, only because they have 8 episodes, they get to do more of it. He says he's not especially excited about the new cast, including John Lithgow as Dumbledore and Nick Frost as Hagrid. Bitter. You have to understand that when Richard Harris passed away and Michael Gambon took over as Dumbledore, that transition, even back then, was difficult for me. So now it's difficult imagining anyone else in those roles. I still see Alan Rickman, I still see Maggie Smith and Robbie Coltrane. It's part of my DNA and I can't get beyond it. So other comments he was making about the series were like, why do we need to do this again? It's not adding anything new to the cinematic universe of Harry Potter.
Well,
it's
neither would his adaptation of The Cursed Child, but that's not what they're asking him.
Right. He was never offered any sort of creative role in the HBO series. He only directed one of the movies. Or was it 2? 2 of the movies.
2? I think, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it was 2.
You
I
would
might
have
be wrong.
more room to talk if you had directed all of the movies, then maybe people would listen to you. But you just sound like a has-been who's riding the coattails of this franchise that has nothing to do with you anymore, and you're using it as an opportunity to throw some jabs at J.K. Rowling, who you likely disagree with. I know he didn't explicitly state his thoughts on the trans issue, which is J.K. Rowling's, pet activism, but you can surmise from what he said that he's not sympathetic to her point of view.
I mean, he says everyone in the cast has their own opinion, which is different from J.K. Rowling's opinion. He's saying everybody else believes this. Right. She believes this. Unfortunately, there's only one opinion that matters at this here OK Corral, and that's her opinion because she's the one who created it.
Like she's the odd woman out for taking these stances, when in reality,
he did do the first 2.
A lot of these creatives and talent probably agree with her, and they just don't talk about it openly because it would hurt their careers and they don't want to get into the fray. But J.K. Rowling did see this interview and she responded to it in a lengthy post on X, calling out Chris Columbus. She says, as another man who once worked with me declares himself saddened by my beliefs on gender and sex, I thought it might be useful to compile a list for handy reference. Which of the following do you imagine makes actors and directors who aren't involved with the HBO reboot of Harry Potter so miserable? And you can really tell with the way that this post is written that she is an author.
Yes.
Is it my belief that women and girls should have their own public changing rooms and bathrooms? That women should retain female-only rape crisis centers, that men don't belong in women's sports, that female prisoners shouldn't be incarcerated with violent men, male sex offenders, that women should remain in a protected class in law because they have sex-specific needs and issues, that language should reflect reality rather than ideological jargon, especially in a medical context, that women shouldn't be harassed, persecuted, or fired for refusing to pretend humans can change sex, that women should not be threatened with violence and rape when they assert their rights, that freedom of speech and belief are essential to a pluralistic democratic society, that troubled minors, especially those who are gay, autistic, and trauma experienced, should be given mental health support instead of irreversible surgeries and drug treatments on non-existent evidence of benefit, that gay people shouldn't be pressured to include the opposite sex in their dating pools, nor should they be smeared as genital fetishists when they don't. that cross-dressing heterosexual male fetishists aren't actually oppressed, but having the time of their lives piggybacking off gender identity ideology. That said ideology, and the privileged blinkered fools pushing it because they suffer zero consequences themselves, have done more damage to the political left's credibility than Trump and Farage could have achieved in a century. Let me have your thoughts. So that's a lot to take in, but...
You know what I think she does every time she decides to respond to someone? I think she goes like this.
Cracks her knuckles and gets to work, and there's just smoke rising up from the laptop as
I
she goes.
literally think that she gets like this elated feeling as she types. Like her shoulders go like this.
Well, because she's an author.
And she gets taller.
She's an
as
author,
she types.
and she made this a very emotionally evocative post. So there's a lot there, and I do think it's a bit of an overreaction to what Chris Columbus said, honestly.
No, I disagree. I think that as long as he's like, he's speaking on her name out of nowhere.
He started it, so he deserves whatever backlash he gets, for sure. But he definitely didn't speak on the trans issue or his stance on it. He also didn't say that he was saddened by her beliefs about it, which is something that she said at the beginning of the post. He declared himself saddened by her beliefs. That wasn't a part of the interview. I think he has said that in the past.
Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Maybe that was a past comment that he gave and I'm not aware of it, but at least from what I read in his recent interview, that wasn't mentioned. She's now responding to a lot of the responses underneath her post, and one of them piqued my interest. So this person said, I'll make a wild guess and say it's because they weren't asked to be involved in the HBO reboot and needed a fashionable reason to save professional face while trying to appear noble and virtuous. I wager none of them at heart really believes that men can become women. J.K. Rowling responded saying one of them, she didn't name who this was, tried very hard to enlist my help in getting a major part in the HBO reboot. Only after he didn't get it did he decide it was time to put the boot in. So she's referring to some male actor who was trying to reach out to her to get hired as one of the cast members on the HBO series.
Yeah.
And then when he didn't get the part, he spoke out against her. I have no idea who that might be.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that was interesting. And
I mean, that could be anybody. I'm sure a lot of people were up trying to get those roles.
Further than that, she was just waxing poetic about the moral indignation that she rightly feels. I agree with her stance on this issue and this issue alone. I think she's, for the most part, a generic lib and a feminist, but she happens to be right on this issue.
There was the more annoying thing that I saw was Entertainment Weekly reporting basically something that she never said and invoking the idea of transphobia, about saying that her comments in the past about it were her saying that she did not want trans individuals to have, to be given hate crime protections, and they kind of ended the quote early and then went off into their own interpretation of what that quote meant, and then didn't actually hyperlink to what she was actually talking about.
I mean, I don't think anyone should have hate crime protections.
The point is they were framing it that way when that's not what she was saying.
Well, what she's saying is that the trans population should not be recognized as a marginalized group. She doesn't think that that is a category that exists because... So
this is what it said. It said, the author has routinely here, I'll put it up on screen here. The author has routinely posted anti-trans rhetoric stating that she'd, quote, happily do 2 years, and end quote. That's where the quote ends, in prison rather than support policies protecting transgender individuals from hate crimes and publicly celebrating a UK Supreme Court decision that ruled womanhood is a legally defined by biological sex. So it does hyperlink there. And then, of course, that's not what the tweet was. It says, I'd happily do 2 years if the alternative is compelled speech and forced denial of the reality and importance of sex. Bring on the court case. I'll say it'll be more fun than I've ever had on a red carpet, which is nothing to do with her saying anything about protections against hate crimes. They added that and then ended the quote to manipulate what she said.
Well, I'm fairly confident that she is saying the trans population should not be legally recognized as a marginalized group.
Yeah, but they're invoking they used the quote and then they ended the quote and then they invoked further. That's their interpretation.
You know, to be fair, I understand that J.K. Rowling has been a really important voice on this specific issue, especially in the UK with their Supreme Court ruling on biological sex. And that's great and everything, but don't forget that she is a mainstream lib on literally every other issue except this one. She has never spoken about the threat that women face in the UK from migrants, for instance.
Well,
She's never going to speak out on an issue like that, which is actually far more prevalent than the threat that women face from men who identify as women invading their spaces, because just in absolute numbers, there are more migrants physically threatening women on a daily basis in the UK than dudes wearing dresses.
Everybody's got their pet issue. This is just the issue she chooses to focus on.
And that's fine. She's contributed a lot to the culture and to discourse on this specific issue, which has seen a significant sea change in recent years.
This was funny. She says, today I found out that the audio pre-orders for the Hallmarked Man have been the highest in Hatchet's history. Thank you, Strike and Robin fans. So it's about the audiobook for her new CB Strike book. And somebody says the devastating impact of trans activists trying to cancel you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not hurting
It's just
her.
not bearing out in the numbers, and it won't when the series comes out.
It's a true ode to capitalism that if you create something so influential, so monumental that the culture literally shifts around it, you can have pretty much any opinion you want.
Also, J.K. Rowling's statement about, you know, the talent being miserable about her stance on the trans issue is obviously a nod to the fact that people are choosing to work with her even in the face of a lot of backlash, including some new casting announcements that came out over the weekend, including Warwick Davis, who will return as Professor Phileas Flitwick in the new Reboot series. And there was another announcement.
Yeah, there was a guy who plays Goyle, looks just like the guy who played Goyle in the original. I'm annoyed by this, okay? If it's going to be a reboot all of it. Yeah. DC is doing this right now with Harcourt and with, I'm assuming they're doing it with Amanda Waller and with the Peacemaker characters. Nah, if you're going to reboot, you should be rebooting everything and not just, it's not a grab bag. This isn't an a la carte menu. You reboot entirely or you don't reboot at all.
It's like when you make Severus Snape black.
Well, you know,
you kind of have to throw people a bone.
Well, I mean, they're doing
to gain back the goodwill.
The thing is, I don't even think they need to do that in this case because the casting, otherwise, it's purely on looks alone. If you can find, and I'm sure like somebody has them pulled up here, like the casting has been spot on for everybody else. Like everybody else looks exactly like very close to the person that they're playing before them.
Except for Ron Weasley's Snape. Mom and Snape.
So Ron Weasley's mom is a little thin. Yeah. Yes, that's true.
She can easily fix that.
And then, they'll be like, eat some donuts before the show.
What do they eat in the UK? They like pudding.
Yeah, have some shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
She's a little thin. And of course, Snape is not right. And then some people have made the same claims about Hermione, who is of a darker complexion, but still looks spot on to the character.
Yeah. I don't care as much about the supposed race swap of Hermione because she just seems like she has like olive skin.
And she's a very charming young lady who seems to be very excited to do it. And
she has the voice and the accent and the affect that they were looking for. But ultimately, this isn't going to prevent anyone from working with J.K. Rowling. And I bet if Chris Columbus were offered an opportunity, he would have taken it. He's just a little bitter.
Yeah, he would have just stayed quiet about it then.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.